the News Channel 5 network, this is MorningLine with Nick Barris.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Morning Line. Nick Barris here with you on a Monday. I hope you survived if you're here in Middle Tennessee. The monsoon from yesterday. Wow, was that nonstop rain? And boy, Chattanooga was hit hard by some severe storms, including a tornado with a lot of damage there. And we know what that's like, having come through here, you know, not just, 3, 4, 5 weeks ago, how bad it was here. Anyway, I hope everyone's safe out there, and I'm glad you're joining us this morning on this Monday, back at it. And yes, our conversation continues about the very latest that's happening with the coronavirus and with some of the changes and with the stay-at-home orders approaching to the point where some of them will end up expiring here soon, and what happens next, how that goes, and whether or not something is extended. And a lot of people have strong opinions on that. If you'd like to join in the conversation, the number's up on the screen. We're live on the Plus. This is a live show. I'm here in studio with me at a safe social distance, and he's joining us every week and probably for the foreseeable future, as long as he's available, is Metro's Vice-Mayor Jin Shulman. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. Thank you for having me again.
I really appreciate you taking time to come on this, and hopefully it won't be forever, but we're kind of co-hosts on these shows. You're doing great.
We can start our own show after all this
Exactly. Well, listen, we'll get to some phone calls, but wanted to hit you up on this. All right, so my understanding is Metro, John Cooper's stay-at-home order expires, I guess, is it April 24th?
That's right.
The one from the governor technically expires tomorrow. I think most people would say it's likely we're going to see an extension from him, but maybe not. Can you give me some insight in this? And first of all, by the way, if the governor's is set to expire tomorrow, that would have no bearing on Metros, I imagine, right?
Right. So if you remember, Mayor Cooper started before the governor's Safer at Home. So if the governor were to remove his executive order, Mayor Cooper's executive order stays in place. So folks in Metro Davidson County could still be under a Safer at Home order. So what's going to happen? We don't know. It's like we're just like everybody else. We're trying to figure out how they're analyzing all this from the governor's standpoint and from Mayor Cooper's standpoint. I know that everybody's looking at data. They're looking at the different studies that have come out, the University of Washington, the one that just came out from Vanderbilt University. They're trying to analyze that, trying to analyze data. You know, I was listening over the weekend, not a lot, but to some of the news folks, and I think it was Senator Dickerson from Nashville that I thought actually had said it pretty well, and that is you take the different studies, but then you also watch the real numbers. You know, we've never been through anything quite like this before, but I think you actually have to look at what the projections are, because one projection is that we're going to hit our peak this week.
Yeah.
But I think you actually have to look at the projections and then look at the real numbers the best you can, and then make some solid determinations.
And that's kind of the frustration for some out there, is that and there's a lot of rumors going around, but they'll be upset with the numbers keep changing or the projections keep changing. And kind of my take on that is that if the projections have changed and maybe things all of a sudden show a bit of improvement, it's because of what we've been doing to make those things change, as opposed to there was never a problem to begin with. But what I worry is we start seeing some modest improvements, and we're still not there yet in Tennessee, period. I mean, we just haven't. But I worry that we'll all rush back too soon, because we also desperately want to get back to normal. And, I hope our leaders and you and others, take a hard look at whether or not, okay, we're making our move here, but if we lift everything and everyone else just stops staying home, it could come back the way it was.
Well, I think you've got different analysis on that as well. So some people think that as soon as the orders are lifted, everybody's going to start showing back up and we're going to be back to where we were. Other people think that people are going to be reluctant to come out. So take the people who are most at risk, the older Tennesseans. Are they going to just come right back out, or are they going to wait? We're not so sure. We're not sure, but it may have to be phased in. And I think I know people are working on that right now to figure out, once we get on the other side of this thing, how do we phase this thing back in so we don't run into the same situation again.
Well, how would a phasing work, you think? If you just think about Metro, and like I said, it goes till the 24th, and the mayor could extend it, of course. But when that finally starts being lifted, do you think it would be where he might announce, all right, now certain segments that, we've suggested they stay home, will start opening up, say restaurants only, or I don't know. How do you do that?
I think you could, I know people are looking at that. I think you could phase it back in. I'll give you an example. So during the day, I work with older Tennesseans. I don't think you're going to see senior centers open right back up. I don't think you can, because again, those were the most at risk. So those were one of the things that closed down the fastest at the beginning. So senior center is a place where people can congregate. Seniors, older Tennesseans can come in and have activities or get a meal together. Just because we get on the other side of this does not mean that people still aren't going to be at risk. So it may have to be phased in from the standpoint of, what do you open up at the beginning? I don't think you open everything back up. I think you kind of phase it back in. And senior centers may be one of the last things to open back up, depending on what we find on the other side of this thing. But I don't think that you can just simply get on the other side of this thing or hit the peak and then go, everything's open again. I think you have to slowly phase it back in, so we watch our numbers and we make sure everybody's safe.
And that's just rational thought. I understand people want to get back to their life. I sure as heck do. I desperately want to. The last thing I want to do is rush back. I mean, we can't just, get this thing down. We have to knock it out, okay? And I can tell you this, even on my own, and I don't need to be told by any order, okay? I don't care what a governor or a mayor tells me. I'm going to do what I think safest, which is staying at home. And I'm going to stay probably beyond when you guys open things up again. I'll tell you this right now, I'm not sitting in a Titans game, later, unless I'm absolutely convinced in that crowd, if we have football, which I sure hope we do, it's going to be safe. Now, I have season tickets, Jim. I'm not going. Okay, and everyone else may pack it in until I'm absolutely certain that those sitting around me are not going to be exposing me to the coronavirus. It's that simple.
Take a look at, obviously Nashville depends a lot on tourism.
Yep.
What is that going to mean? And so I had a long discussion with an individual last week, and the question is, are people, we get on the other side of this thing and we start opening back up, are people going to just pour back into Nashville? Are we going to see, people riding around on those bachelorette parties, people riding around on the tractors, the party buses? Are we going to see those things or not? Are people going to be more reluctant to, at the beginning, to say, I'm just not yet ready to take that chance? Or are you going to see, you look at the situation in Florida where during spring break people were all over the beach. Are people going to just come on back en masse?
Yeah.
And I think that's what you have to look at, and you go, just because we get on the other side of the peak does not mean that we're in the clear, because we could have to close right back down again, and we don't want to do that.
Right.
So I think you have to be very careful. You got to set some restrictions, use some common sense, and eventually we'll get on the other side where everything will be a lot clearer. But I think you're going to have to phase this thing in.
Okay, listen, we're going to take some phone calls. And I want to remind folks, right now, apparently when you're on hold, you cannot hear the programming. Stay on the line and watch it on TV until I take you. Don't want to throw you. You're still on the line if you're on hold. In fact, we've got someone that waited just through. Is that Charlie still on line one? Charlie, good morning. Hi, Charlie. Go ahead.
Hey, Nick. Good morning to you. How you doing today?
Good. Good to hear from you, Charlie.
Good to hear from you. Mayor, Vice Mayor, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Since this coronavirus has been widespread epidemic and everything, what is the city of Nashville and Davidson County doing to help the homeless population? Because they're in a tight spot when they go to the shelter and everything. What is the city of Nashville doing to help them out, and are you trying to help them out in various ways to keep it from spreading throughout the homeless population?
Sounds good. Yeah, we get a question like that every time you're on, Jim, which is nice. It shows people care.
Yeah, I think that's right. So I know that shelters have been set up at the fairgrounds, and they've taken very strict precautions to make sure that if people do want to be safer in place in a facility like that, people do practice social distancing. They are being taken care of. And then if somebody is tested positive, they're put in a whole separate area. And I think they may even have a whole separate building now that they're using. Not that we've had a lot of those cases, but we're trying to be extra careful about that. I know a lot of people have called in about the homeless. I know we've had a lot of questions from council members about that. I think this was set up pretty early by the mayor's office to watch this very carefully to make sure that it doesn't spread. Again, you know, we're all in this thing together. I think we've gotten a lot of information out there to make sure that people who are homeless, they have a place to go if they need to, and if they get sick, they should come in and get tested, and there's a place for them to go, particularly if they're not, if they don't need to go to the hospital, if they just need a place to stabilize. But we're all in this together, so whether you're out on the street or you're in a home, you got to practice social distancing, and I think people are doing a pretty good job at that.
Yeah, and yeah, didn't they set up an extra shelter, right? Cranston over there said they've got something over at the fairgrounds for more space. The main thing is to have the space available to accommodate everyone in a safe distance.
Good question.
Let's go to Ann. Ann, good morning. Hi, Ann.
Good morning. I wanted to answer a question for the Vice Mayor, actually. For my birthday this weekend, I got to keep my grandchildren, 5 and 3. And to answer his question, when this is all over, I will not be going back to some of my practices. And I don't think my grandchildren will either. My daughter and I have both been very, very cautious and have followed all of the practices set out by the mayor during this whole COVID episode because of my health concerns and for the concerns of her children. And in watching the practices of my grandchildren this weekend in washing their hands, even my 3-year-old said she prefers warm water over cold. These type of things, her children will not go back to the same practices. Wash hands before eating, wash hands after eating. Those people don't have their masks when they're walking, Grandma Ann. Those type of things. Our children are going to carry these practices the same as the trauma for the tornado, and these type of things will continue with our children.
I think she's right. I think this is going to be a new normal in a lot of ways. A lot of things that we're doing right now, business-wise and otherwise, some of them are quite good, you know, and will translate even when we're back to normal.
Well, so while Ann was talking, I was trying to write down things that I thought would be the new normal. I think people will be washing their hands quite a bit more.
We may not shake hands anymore. Did you hear about that? Some people think when you come out of this, that kind of touching with a stranger may not be the way it is. It may be a tip of the hat.
Well, and maybe so. I mean, somebody once said, or just recently said, that Nashville had to be a no-hug zone for a while. I think people are so used to hugging, particularly down in the South, that I'm not sure if we want to give that one away. But I do think people will be singing Happy Birthday or some other song while they're washing their hands. They'll think about that. I know that every time I go anywhere, I start wiping down surfaces. I think that's probably going to continue as well. The idea that you can't find any of these wipes anywhere in any of the stores is probably going to continue. So you may want to invest in wipes. Some of these things, Ann is exactly right. I think some of these things are going to continue. People are going to be, at least for a while, a lot more careful.
Yep. Listen, we got to take a break on that note. When we come back, we do have some folks on hold. Rob and Sean, others, stay right there. The Vice Mayor will talk with you in a moment. And to keep in mind, if you're on hold, you may not be able to hear the programming there. Listen on the TV or wherever you're paying attention to it there, and then listen till we take you, and then you can go. We'll take a break and be back with more of your calls and our conversation with Jin Shulman right after this.